and welcome back to the windy channel of motorbike nonsense. Now, I think motorcyclists are a hypocritical bunch because we're forever saying that superbikes are too much for the road. What we need is a middleweight machine with about 100 horsepower and a decent chassis, and oh my god, Aprilia has finally made one in the RS660. This is a £10,000 motorbike with 100 horsepower. It's designed for the road. I'm going to give you a review. Let's hop on, go for a ride, and we'll talk about this new Italian middle-sized stallion. I don't know if that makes it a Shetland pony, but anyway, some kind of smaller than usual horse. Cool, how about that? That was almost a professional introduction to the video. So yeah, welcome aboard my quick review of the Aprilia RS660. What have we got here? Well, as I said, this is a 659cc 100 horsepower parallel twin with 67 Newton meters of torque, which sounds fairly tame, and to be honest, in some ways it is. There's a van. Thank you, van. But that's the whole point of this bike. It's got an excellent chassis. It's got proper cab adjustable forks. It is an aluminium frame, aluminium swing arm. It's designed to be lightweight. I think it's 167 kilos before fluids. So I guess this is what we've been screaming out for, right? A lightweight mid-power bike for the road. And it sounds like that. Still not breaking the speed limit. Yeah, this thing, well, the first impression that you get from getting on this is that it is light. Pushing it round, it feels like a 125. And then you open the throttle and you're not exactly overwhelmed by the torque, but it's certainly quick. Like, not rip your face off quick. With anti-wheelie off, it'll pick up the front off a crest in second gear, no problem. And right, £10,500. For that money, you're still getting a 6-axis IMU, you're still getting lean sensitive ABS and traction control, 5 rider modes, up and down quick shifter, basically everything you get on the RSV4, just with half the power. It's nuts, and it's a lovely package. But yeah, let's start with the riding position, because you might have heard from Tinternet that this isn't a full-on sports bike because the riding position isn't unbearable, and that is true. It's actually pretty reasonable. The pegs are high-ish, but not ridiculously high. The reach to the bars is pretty short. They're not too low either. They're kind of in line with my hips. I'm 6'3", I fit on this no problem. Obviously I can touch the floor. The seat height feels pretty accessible. Again, I'm not one to judge that, but it is pretty low. And actually the riding triangle is very comfortable, from my bum to the bars to the feet. I did, what, an hour and a half on this the other day? On the motorways, I was completely fine on it. So it's not an intimidating riding position when you get on it. It's not something where you've got to find a place in your hips to store your ankles. It's nothing like that. It's just reasonable, and I'm already enjoying this. I'm on bumpy roads, and the suspension is reasonably firm, reasonably sporty, but we're talking more Ducati Supersport than Panigale V2. So yeah, so it's comfortable, it's approachable, it is not intimidating from a riding position point of view, and it's definitely all day comfortable. And I think Aprilia knows this, because they'll sell you a set of saddlebags, panniers to you and me, and tank bag as well. So they're designing this for people to actually use, and it has a commute riding mode, which knocks back the power a little bit and just softens everything off. Let's talk next about, well, the chassis. The chassis is actually really quite good. It's really quite impressive. The brakes, Brembo's up front, pretty decent, not like Stylemas or anything fancy like that. Just kind of run-of-the-mill, medium to high spec Brembo's. They do the job perfectly well. As I've said, it's got cornering ABS on it as well, so it's safe. It's safe. And the back brake, does work. It does work. It's not uber sharp, it's there when you need it to drag through slow corners when you're filtering, things like that. I've spoken about the firmness of the suspension. We'll get on some faster roads in a bit, and I'll talk about the confidence that it gives you. It's on Pirelli Diablo Rosso Corsa 2 tyres. They seem pretty decent, not obviously super Corsas, top spec sports tyres. It's still a giggle machine. It still makes you laugh, but you just don't end up doing ridiculous speeds. You can rev it out the very top of second gear at about 10.5, 11,000 RPM before you hit the red line, and you're only just about doing 70 miles an hour. I mean, which does make 3, 4, 5 and 6 feel like a bit of a waste, but there we go. That's bikes for you, isn't it? They're not slow things. But it's not a boring parallel twin by any stretch of the imagination. The airbox noise is the same baleful, melodic, grunty, hollow-chested howl that you get from a Ducati 959, 899, that kind of era of mid-weight Panigales. It's exactly the same feeling, just a bit slower. It's yeah, it's subtly punchy is probably how I describe this engine. It revs really quickly. So yeah, it does things like that, little power wheelies in first and second gear, kind of when you're not expecting it, to be honest. And that's the thing, the motor has not got a huge amount of torque, but it's got it pretty much from the get-go, about 3,000–4,000 RPM. So when you crack it open at 6,000–7,000 in second, off a crest, it'll go whoop, whoop, whoop. That's quite exciting. I quite like that. Would not get bored of that noise. So what else can the RS660 do as a practical middleweight everyday sports bike? Well, you can do this. It's got cruise control. It's not radar guided or anything like that. You set it using a simple switch on the left hand switch gear. It's actually really nice to have because after a while your wrists might get a little bit sore, I guess, on really long trips. So yeah, it's good to have. You can sit back, read a magazine, tuck behind the tiny screen and just go about your way. Right, I'm going to stop waffling and get some twistier roads. We should talk about the mirrors. I said in the last video they're a bit vibey, and they are until you're kind of just cruising in 5th, 6th gear. At lower revs they do get buzzy pretty quickly. Yeah, brakes mega. Oh yeah. Honestly, I don't think people that have reviewed this bike have spoken about the noise enough. It's such a lovely noise. I prefer it to the sound of my Ducati, that's for sure. It's all airbox noise. The exhaust is dead quiet. They kind of got these 2 exits that come out underneath the belly pan. What I should really be talking about is the chassis, because this thing just holds a line in corners like you wouldn't believe. It's not a budget feeling bike in corners. You've got loads of confidence, and it's just, yeah, tracks. It takes a little bit of a push to get it turned in. It's not the quickest steering bike in the world. You have to kind of drop your elbow, give it a conscious counter steer into the corner, but once you do, it feels pretty epic, and you just want to drop your shoulder, get down low and pretend you're on a racetrack, which is obviously the whole point of this bike, isn't it? No, hang on, no, the police won't like that, saying it turns the roads into racetracks. Let me reword that. It just feels really nice. Yeah. What is this I'm behind? It's some kind of... It's either some classic car. It looks like a toy. I should probably know, being a car person. So many cyclists. There we go. Overtake on the solid whites on a blind corner and a Defender. That's how you do it in Surrey. Right, let's talk about riding modes. I covered them briefly. You change them using a little switch down here on the right switch gear. You've got commute, dynamic and individual, which someone has set up to turn off rear ABS and wheelie control on this bike. There are 2 more which are for the track. There's time attack and something else, and they give you even more aggressive throttle maps and let you turn off other bits and bobs. But yeah, I think it's fine. I would say and I'm not a hooligan by saying this, I would say turn the anti-wheelie off, just because this isn't a bike that's going to terrify you by lifting the front wheel without you meaning to, but it just adds so much to the riding experience to have it just hop off crests when you're gunning it, and with that noise and getting a kind of watered down RSV4 but at 60 mile an hour kind of flavour. So I would turn that off, and I'm no hero, so go for it. The dashboard, as you might be able to see, hopefully you can see, I'll put in some shots, it's really clear. You've got a bar at the bottom that you can cycle between odometer, trips, fuel, MPG, and all that kind of stuff. Average speed, maximum speed, let's not look at that. It's dead easy to use, and there are menus and menus that you can go in to reconfigure individual modes and adjust the engine braking and the anti-wheelie, traction control, and all that kind of stuff. You can really configure this to your heart's content if you want to, or you can just get on it, stick it in dynamic mode, and have an absolute blast. Right, let's talk about downsides quickly before I get to the fun roads. The fuel tank is 15 litres, it gets about 50 mpg no matter what you do with it. I kind of feel it should do slightly better on the fuel economy front, because pretty much every modern bike gets 50 mpg this side of a Ducati V4. And I'll think of some more once I've got to this limit, 60 limit. Right, slightly faster corners now, let's stick it in third, kill some flies with my head. God. It's one of those bikes that is really easy to move around on the seat. That actually kind of encourages you to move around on the seat. I don't know why. I think it's because the tank locks you in nicely by your knees, so you feel completely stable and safe, kind of shifting your weight around on it, even if it's unnecessary and you look a bit of a plonker on the road. Right, let's give this cyclist some room. Right, there's a downside. You hit the rev limiter quite easily because it's only 10,500 RPM, and you think you're riding this wave of power, and you kind of crash into it, just kind of smack into that limiter, and it's a little bit annoying. You get the shift lights lighting up, but obviously then you just quick shift up a gear. It just happens sooner than you would think. What a thing though, what a thing. Like honestly, if you are bored of looking out for speed cameras and looking over your shoulder for police cars, did he see that? This is the perfect tonic for that, really. Don't get me wrong, it'll still get you into trouble if you just habitually ride like a penis, but it's just a slightly more open-minded kind of sports bike that doesn't really wave its power or kind of get its Amex black card out at the bar and slam it down for everyone to see. It's a more subtle, cultured thing. Maybe it's a bike for people who've already got, you know, a more expensive adventure bike or something and just want some slightly cheaper sports bike thrills in the garage. It'd be perfect for that. Like, I would happily have one of these alongside my Hyper Motard for track days or something like that. I know I've just said track, but this would be quite good on a track. I think if you're really fast, you'll find the limits of the suspension reasonably quickly, but for me, being a novice, I'd be fine with it, I think. Honestly, stick some super courses on it, and this would be, yeah, you're knackering your sliders all day long. It's a cool thing. It's a really cool thing. I suppose I should talk about the fact that having 100 horsepower, it does make it more involving, because you have to do a bit of dancing on the gearbox for overtakes and things like that. But I'm doing, let's slow down to 50. Right, do 50 mile an hour in 6th gear. If I gun it, that's 60, and then it starts picking up a bit, but it's definitely not got like instant overtake punch. But say, you know, let's drop down 50 again. Oh, down 3 gears on the blipper. Still not terrifically fast actually, probably 1 second. There we go. So yeah, it does only really get going like properly fast within the context of this at about 6,000 RPM. So it's not like a 2-stroke with a really narrow power band, but it's certainly got you know, 4,000 RPM where it's happiest if you want to be quick. But really, this bike's about corner speed and carrying speed, and that's half the fun. That's kind of what we all dreamed of, isn't it? Of having this middleweight bike that doesn't rely on like your right wrist to go fast. While we're talking of technology, there's also some cool stuff this bike has as standard. LED headlight, cornering lights, slipper clutch, it's quite cool, quite useful I guess. And if you're tarty, you can get a track only full Acra system. You can also get an Acra slip-on. I'm not actually sure what that looks like, I'll try and stick a photo in. But yeah, you can make it louder if you want it to. And to be honest, the exhaust makes zero noise on this. It's not like modern bikes where even though they're Euro 5, they've got the sheer capacity to make a lot of noise. This doesn't, and the exhaust looks a little bit weedy when you look down the end of it. So it might be worth investigating some slip-ons for this. Oh, cool. I'm glad I don't have hay fever. That was a massive field of rape. Goodness. It's just such a lovely mix of power and a really good chassis. So you can actually kind of make the most of both of them. If that makes any sort of sense, you don't feel like you're wasting your money with this, like perhaps you would with an RSV4, where you think, well, on the road I'm getting maybe 5 grand of my 20 grand out of this. One thing I should point out about the riding position on this is that I'm wearing jeans and a jacket. This is a jacket and jeans sports bike. It's not so tilted up on its nose that you need to wear leathers to grip the tank. You're locked in the seat by the pillion seat behind you, and you can really grip the tank with your knees. So I'm not slithering about. So it's a bike you're more likely to use, isn't it? If you're not having to throw on your entire gimp suit before going out, you can just put on some Kevlar jeans, quick jacket, summer jacket, quick jacket, this is a very slow jacket, and just go for it. I like that in a bike, and I like a bike that I'm actually going to use rather than think, oh, I can't be bothered to get dressed up for that. Just go into the shops and what you're wearing. Aprilia probably thought of that because they're Italian, and you know, their 16-year-olds need to ride these down to the shops to impress the girls. Bella donna. In the interests of giving you a full comprehensive review of the RS660, I've been riding it around town for a little bit, and it has no vices really. It's as easy as swatting slugs with a big heavy Badger. It's easy. It's got a really light clutch actually, very easy, and you can stick it in third and it'll trundle around at 20 miles an hour and still pull hard enough. No vices really. The riding position is such that you can take all the weight with your thighs, so your wrists don't get achy in stop-start traffic. This would make a really good commuter bike as well, because the mirrors fold in entirely as well. So yeah, I've not been getting hot, but it's only 13-14 degrees Celsius at the moment here in England, so I can't give you the full scorcher report. I'll wait for some handsome tanned American bastard to do that somewhere on YouTube. But yeah, round town, really quite good. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, alright mate. Classic. Anyway, I probably waffled far too much. Sorry if that was a bit jumbled. I'm just trying to get my thoughts out. And yeah, please like, comment, subscribe. Hit the old, you know what, the Julian Assange, the bell, if you want to be notified when I post new videos. Leave a nice comment, and I'll see you next time for more motorbike stuff. I can't remember what's up next, but anyway, you're probably not watching this after I post it, so just subscribe and I'll waffle at you in the future. Thank you very much, and goodbye.